Let's think about using the clock, the 12-hour clock, and moving on to the 24-hour clock. Now when telling the time, we commonly use the 12-hour clock, and it's a typical clock face. There it is. I've taken off the hour and the minutes hand, and you're just left with the clock face going 1 all the way through round to 12. And the way we tell the time usually is we go once round for the morning and once round for the afternoon. So in the morning, AM, or simply 1 o'clock, will be the first time after midnight, the first hour after midnight, and then it goes 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, etc. And the direction it's going in is called, unsurprisingly, clockwise. Once it gets to 12 noon, then of course after that we're now into the afternoon, and if we're sticking with the 12-hour clock system, we'll just do 1 p.m, 2 p.m, 3 p.m, etc, etc. Now with the 24-hour clock, once midday is reached, something different happens. We keep counting past the number 12, i.e. past 12 o'clock. So starting with 12 we go to 13, 14, 15. Now we don't call these o'clock, we call them hours. So 20 hours, 21 hours, 22, 23. In actual fact we call them often 100 hours, 1300 hours, 1400 hours, 1500 hours. That will become clearer once I start writing it down. Now after 2300 hours, which of course is 11 o'clock at night in normal speak, it goes to midnight. So that 23 looks like it should go to 24, midnight. But even though it's called the 24-hour clock, we don't actually call it 2400 hours. It actually becomes 00. It becomes 0 because you start back at the start of the very next day. Well, okay, what we need to do now is think about how we actually record times, how we write them down using the 24-hour clock convention once we admit that we no longer wish to use the labels AM or PM. And this is a system used in things like railway timetables, recording health notes, that kind of thing. So let's explore that now. So here I have an example where we've been asked to convert 3:45 p.m, meaning 3:45 in the afternoon, to the 24-hour system, to the 24-hour clock. Now because it's in the afternoon, it means it's past 12. Well, 3 o'clock past 12 will be 13, 14, 15. So 3:45 p.m. we're going to write as 15:45. Now we do not write AM or PM because those labels are exclusively for the 12-hour clock system. What is important in the 24-hour clock is that you must have 4 digits. Now that's about the only convention. If you want to put a label, and many people for example working in healthcare would want to label, you might put hours or just HR or even HRS. There is some confusion and not a settled convention regarding whether you can put something between the first 2 and the second 2 numbers. For example, my alarm clock at home and microwave ovens etc. might have a double dot. 15:45 might be shown by that. There are some clocks, digital clocks, that might show it as 15 with a single dot 45, mimicking the example we saw above with 3:45. All those 3 examples are correct. Of course you can mix and match, you can put the hour in front of any of those, but they are all seen as equivalent and correct expressions of 3:45 in the afternoon. So that's our first example, and I think it would be nice to do 1 or 2 more. In this next example, we've been asked to convert 8:22 AM to the 24-hour clock. Now 8:22 AM is in the morning, that's the clue from the AM part, and we might be forgiven for thinking, we don't need to change anything, it's just 8:22 with or without the dots. But that's not true. You see, the 24-hour clock does have to have the convention of you must have 4 digits. There's only 3 there, so before 10 in the morning you must have a 0, which is why people in the military say things like 0800 hours, that kind of thing. They're making it crystal clear that the time they are giving is in 24-hour clock, and then you can instantly from the values themselves tell whether it's in the morning or afternoon. Just like I said in the first example, I can vary the way I express my answer because, as I said before, there is no necessarily settled convention, but all these would be correct for 24-hour clock. I might put hours, HR, HRS, etc., or might even leave it without one, but as I said a moment ago, it's a good idea, I think, when dealing with things like notes on a patient's health chart, to always put a unit. But again, just as I said before, just to confirm, these three would all be regarded as correct expressions in the 24-hour clock of 8:22 AM. Now for this final example, we're given a question on the 24-hour clock in context. It's not just a straightforward convert one time to another. We're told that I leave home at 8:20 in the evening. Now that clearly is a 12-hour clock reference, so it's 8:20 PM. And we're told that 6 hours later we arrive at our destination, so plus 6 hours. We need to know what time it is using the 24-hour clock that we arrive at our destination. Now what a lot of people like to do is just to work out the time in 12-hour clock convention and then just convert to 24 at the end. So we could do this. Now 8:20 PM, 8:20 in the evening, well it's only 20 minutes past 8. Now from 8 o'clock till midnight there's only 4 hours, so 6 hours later past 8 o'clock is 2 in the morning. But therefore 6 hours later after 8:20 will be 2:20 AM. And then we would just say, okay, I've got my 12-hour clock. What is that in 24-hour clock? 0220. I like to put the double dots in myself, and I also like to put HR. But of course what you could do instead is, instead of thinking about it in terms of converting at the end, you could convert at the beginning. So for example, I look at 8:20 PM and I think, okay, what is that in 24-hour clock convention? Well, it's after 12, so I have to count 8 hours after 12. So it's 13, 14, 15. That takes us to 20. So 8:20 becomes 20 hours. And then I add 6 hours onto that. Well, that is 4 hours away from 24, which we know is actually expressed as 0000. So 2020 plus 6 hours will take us to 0220. We'll clearly arrive at the same time. I think in preference I usually go with the former result. It just is more commonsensical to me to stick with a more familiar time, the 12-hour clock system, work out my new time and then convert at the end. When you're doing questions like this, perhaps in an exam setting, always make sure you read the question carefully. Once or twice I've seen the wording of the question where it says something like 6 hours earlier I set off. What time did I set off? So make sure you've got the direction of time correct, and it is a good idea to write down the two times so that you can keep track of it. It's not always so easy just to keep track of it in your head. But I just thought it'd be nice showing you a slightly more realistic question aligned to some examinations that we have in nursing, midwifery and foundation degree. Alright, thanks very much.